it was a major event in the Republican Party when the U.S. Chamber of Commerce turned against Trump. The only parity that the Republican Party had against Democrats for the past 100 years has been the fact that while Democrats had the media, Hollywood, music and culture, unions, and to some extent finance, Republicans had the war industry, the energy industry, and the Chamber of Commerce, because these Chamber of Commerce companies preferred republicanism for its free market, free enterprise, and low tax structure. The problem is Trump sort of, stepped on a rattlesnake with this idea of making America first and American nationalism, to the extent that it cut back on American interventionalism, American, constant democracy promotion abroad. He was the first president in 40 years not to, declare a new war effectively. So you had all these Chamber of Commerce companies whose the lion's share of the revenue is dependent on foreign markets, or whose supply chains are sourced in foreign countries. And they need a big bad CIA. They need a big bad State Department. They need a big bad USAID and a big bad Pentagon if necessary. And so Trumpism became a sort of threat to the bottom line of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And so I come back to this because the commercial interests here are sort of driving what's happening at the intelligence and military and diplomatic policy level, if that makes sense. For example, take Ukraine, right? Ukraine, it was not just, the overthrow of the government in 2014 there. Yes, it was a State Department operation. Yes, it was a, USAID funded, CIA directed operation, as well as with the British government. But who were the financial stakeholders? Why did they do it? Well, the Ukrainian government had just rejected a U.S. embassy, IMF trade deal and sided with Russia. They were squeamish about privatizing Naftogaz. And at the time, the U.S. College of Corporations, these Chamber of Commerce companies, the oil and gas companies, had all made massive investments in the Ukrainian energy sphere, because the long-range plan was to bankrupt Gazprom and take the $1 trillion market that Gazprom has into Europe, cut them off, and have NATO-based energy companies take their market for them. So, and the plan was beautiful. If you kill Gazprom, first of all, you have a national security predicate for doing it, because if you kill Gazprom, there goes the Russian military. So now, Russia's threat in Africa is neutralized. Russia can't oppose the Pentagon in Syria and in other places. So there's a lot of national security Pentagon reasons to pursue that. But then you had all these U.S. companies ink all these deals between 2011 and 2013 with the Ukrainian energy sector. Chevron signed a $10 billion deal with Naftogaz, which is the state-owned Ukrainian gas company. Burisma was the largest private gas company. It was the feeder to Naftogaz. Shell from the United Kingdom. It was Royal Dutch Shell, but now it's basically headquartered in London. So Shell also signed a matching $10 billion deal with Naftogaz, the state-owned gas company. Halliburton, Dick Cheney's, where he used to be, CEO and chairman of the board. And also George Soros had a large equity share in Halliburton. Halliburton owns the oil and gas processing rights in Ukraine. All of these companies were invested in resources that were solely situated in the Donbass and in Crimea. The Donbass in the mountains and Crimea offshore. And then what happened after? So we overthrow the government in 2014 because the Ukrainian government was not giving everything that the State Department wanted. We thought we wrested total control of it. And now all of these people, who had made all these U.S. corporations who'd made these investments make bank. But then we don't expect this counter coup that happens, basically just a few months afterwards, when the Donbass broke away and Crimea voted to join the Russian Federation, and the whole thing was purportedly backstopped by the Russian military. Right. So you have tens of billions of dollars of investments by U.S. oil and gas companies whose investments all go to zero, because now how does Burisma mine shale in the Donbass? How does Naftogaz get the profits from that mining if Russia controls the territory? How are you going to do offshore drill rigging in Crimea when Crimea belongs to Russia? So you have these commercial interests driving the State Department policy in the region. When Victoria Nuland in late 2013 gave that famous speech where she bragged about the $5 billion that the U.S. government had pumped into Ukrainian civil society, the very civil society that would go on to overthrow the government just months later. When she gave that speech, she was at a U.S. embassy event being sponsored by Chevron and Exxon.
Really?
Yes. You go to my X feed. I got the picture in HD 4K blown up for everyone to see. So again, you have this relationship between the commercial. So it's not just that like we have a rogue State Department. We have a revolving door between big government and big corporations. And the idea of putting America first in a world where those corporations are primarily multinational means that nationalism is a threat to multinational corporate interests. And so multinational corporate interests will sponsor the State Department activity and use the battering ram of the CIA, the State Department, the Pentagon, and NATO to achieve those corporate interests. So we have a much bigger problem here, which is why I call for reform, because our whole financial ecosystem is actually bent on this.
And that's just the nature of globalization. I mean, that was always going to happen if you thought it through I mean, why would Brexit be seen as a threat to U.S. interests? I mean, that's